Alright, so now I'm going to go over Mat 100 Practice Final. So don't forget that when you take your Mod 3 test or your exam, that it also will have 10 questions from your final that are made by the math department. And I'll go over each one of these, but the answers should have been at the end of your printout. So hopefully you're just watching this to make sure that you understand how to do everything. Alright, so we're going to start with number 1, and it says solve the formula for the specific variable. And it says A equals B plus C over 2, solve for B. So our whole goal is to make sure that our answer is B equals, and then there's no B in your answer. Alright, so our whole goal is to get B by itself. So we're going to start out by multiplying each side by 2 because we want to get rid of this. Alright, when we do that, this cancels out this, and then we are left with 2A on this side and B plus C on this side. So now we're getting closer to getting B by itself. Right now we still have C in the way, so we minus C from both sides. Then we're left with 2A minus C equals B. So that's your final answer. Alright, number 2. Solve 5x plus 9 minus 7x plus 6 equals x plus 18. So when you have a complex equation as such, you want to try to simplify it as much as possible before you start multiplying and dividing and adding, subtracting on each side. So if I look at this side, I see that I have x's. So I'm going to put those together first. So if I have 5x's and I take away 7x's, I have minus 2x's. Then I also notice that I have two numbers that I can put together. So 9 plus 6 is 15. That's as simple as this I can get because we cannot add x's and numbers together. The other side is as simple as it can be also because we have an x term and we have a constant term. Right now we have x's on both sides. So it doesn't matter which side you pick. You can take these and put over here or these over here, but I'm kind of a creature of habit. I always like to put all my x's on the left side. So to do that, we want them off this side. I do the opposite of what they have. They have added x, so we'll subtract x. What I do to one side, I do to the other. This cancels that out and leaves just the 18 on this side. And then on this side, we have take minus 2, minus 1, so we have minus 3, and then the plus 15. Minus 15 from both sides, gone. And then this side we have 3 left. And then we divide both sides by negative 3. So our answer is negative 1. Oops, sorry. Alright, number 3. It's a very similar equation, just includes parentheses this time. So solve 2 times the quantity x plus 4 equals 4x plus 5 minus 2x plus 3. So let me get this written. So just like before, we want to simplify each side before we start minusing and pluses on each side. So first thing to get rid of parentheses, if you can't combine what's in the parentheses, then we're going to distribute. So 2 times x is 2x, 2 times positive 4 is positive 8. On this side, and we cannot combine anything, can't make it any simpler on this side. We have x term and a constant term. On this side, we can combine our variables and our constants. So we have 4x's, take away 2x's, we're left with 2x's. We have 5, positive 8, or 3, which is positive 8. So just like before. Oh, if you notice though, excuse me, if we have the same thing on each side, then we don't have to go any further, because what's going to happen is everything's going to cancel out and it's going to end up being 0 equals 0. When this happens, you can answer all real numbers. Also, infinite solutions is an answer too, but that's only when everything cancels out and leaves a true fact afterwards. No matter what you do with your x, it'll always be the same on both sides. Alright, number 4. Solve 3 times the quantity x plus 5 minus 2 times the quantity x plus 4 equals 2x minus 2. So again, just like number 2 and 3, just a step harder. Let me get it written here, and then we'll go over it. Alright, so we want to simplify each side first. We need to get rid of the parentheses first, so we have 2 distributive property questions to work on first. So 3 times x, 3 times positive 5, negative 2 times x, negative 2 times 4. Alright, simplify things as the best you can on each side. So again, I'm going to put my variables together since they're the same, and my constants together. So 3x take away 2x is 1x, 15 take away 8 is positive 7. I have x's on both sides. I'm going to choose my right side to take them off of. That's gone. 1 take away 2 is negative 1. Minus 7 from both sides. Divide both sides by negative 1. So if you're watching this and you feel like I'm going too fast, just remember you can always hit the pause button to kind of get yourself caught up. If you're working through and you don't understand where I got an answer or how I did something, feel free to contact me. I'm here for you. Alright, number 5. Just like before, another equation, just a step harder. Solve x over 2 minus 1/10 equals x over 5 plus a half. Alright, so the easiest way to do this is to get rid of your fractions first. You don't have to do it this way. If you can handle doing fractions very easily, then just keep working with combining like terms and so on and so forth. But I'm not a big fraction lover, and I know most of you are not. So the easiest thing to do is to get rid of our fractions first. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at your denominators, and you're going to find something they all can go into. So 2, 10, 5, and 2 all go into 10. So if I times everything by 10, I will get rid of my fractions. So I'm making everything 10 times bigger. So I'll write it out the long way. So that's basically what we did, is make everything 10 times bigger. You can kind of envision that this is all over 1. So 10x over 2 is 5x. So you're kind of doing this thing, cross canceling. Minus 1 equals 2x plus 5. And then we're back to that equation that you're used to seeing, where we have x's on both sides. I'm left with 3x minus 1 and 5 on this side. So we get x equals 2. So, and that's as difficult as your equations can get when they have fractions, but later on you'll find that we'll have fractions and distributive property all in there too if you have to move on to Mat 200. Alright, number 6. For question 6 through 9, use the given conditions to write an equation for each line in point slope form and slope intercept form. So remember, for point slope form you have to have a point and you have to have the slope. So they should always give you a point, and sometimes you have to find the slope. Alright, so number 6, the line passes through -2, -1, and -1, -6. So they gave us the point, now we just need to find the slope. And then we can find the slope by doing our y1 minus y, or y2 minus y1, and x2 minus x1. So 2 minus 1, 2 minus 1. So our slope is -5. Now it doesn't matter which point you use, you should get the same answers for your slope intercept form. So I always just choose the first one. So it's y take away -1, which is a +1, our slope, and x take away -2, which is a +2. So this is what goes here. And then our slope intercept form is this simplified to the y equals. So first I distribute, then bring my 1 over. Now if you chose the second point for your answer, or for your equation, this would look slightly different. It would say y plus 6 equals -5x plus 1, but you should still get the same slope intercept form. Alright, number 7. Line passes through -8, -10, and parallel to the line whose equation is y equals -4x plus 3. Alright, so we have our point, and we can find our slope by using another line. Since it says it's parallel to, that means it's going to have the same slope as this line. Now this is already in slope intercept form, which is wonderful because that tells us right here that that is our slope. So our slope for our new line is -4. And then we're just going to plug it in. So y take away -10, -4, x take away -8, and then we're going to simplify it to get our slope intercept form. Distribute, bring over. Alright, number 8. Number 8, the line passes through -5 and 6 and is perpendicular to the line that has an x-intercept of 2 and a y-intercept of -4. Alright, so this one's a little bit tougher. Makes you think a little bit harder. But we got our point, so we need our slope. Tells us that we're perpendicular, so if you remember, perpendicular just means that we need the opposite reciprocal of the line that we do know. Now, this one is a little harder because it doesn't give us equation for the line that it's perpendicular to, but it does give us 2 points. An x-intercept means this, right? And a y-intercept means this. So once you have 2 points, you know that you can find the slope just by using the formula like this. So our slope is 2. for this line. Now it says it's perpendicular, which means we're going to flip it and make it the opposite. So our slope for our new line is -1/2. So we'll take the points they give us. Y take away 6 equals -1/2. X take away -5. And there's our first. And then we want to simplify it. Distribute and bring over. This one's a little bit more complicated if you don't remember your rules for adding and subtracting fractions. So we'll kind of just take it over here. This is our problem. Remember, we need the same denominators. If I make this one 2 times bigger, I gotta make this one 2 times bigger. -5 plus 12 is 7, positive, and then we keep it over 2. So this is our final answer. Alrighty, number 9. Let me see if I can make this stop focusing. We'll find out if that works. Alright, number 9, the line has a slope of 3/4 and passes through the origin. So remember, we need the slope and we need a point. They gave us the slope. Origin just means 0, 0. So we're going to say y minus 0 equals 3/4. That's the slope they gave us, and x minus 0. So that's our point slope form. If we simplify this, this will cancel out, and our 0 coming over cancels out. So that is our final answer. Number 10, find the x-intercept of the line 2x plus 5y equals 20. So remember, when you're finding your x-intercept, your y equals 0. So all you're going to do is replace your y with a 0 and solve for x. So our answer is 10. Now, if we want to give it with ordered pairs, it doesn't say specifically ordered pairs, but just remember, ordered pairs means you have your x and your y. So it would look like that. Most of the time they ask for ordered pairs. Alright, number 11. Graph the equation 3x equals 5y minus 15. A couple ways you can do this. You can find values for x and solve for y, and you need to do that twice because you need 2 points to be able to make a line. Or we can put it in slope-intercept form, and then you have your slope and you have your y-intercept, which is the way I prefer. Either way gives you the same answer. Just sometimes when you do your x's and y's, you don't always come out with whole numbers, which makes it a little difficult to plot. Alright, so we're going to bring our 5 over this way and our x over that way. Divide everything by -5. So now I have my slope-intercept form. I know I'm going to start at 3 at the y. And I'm going to go up 3 over 5. And then draw our line. So you'll be doing these on the computer, so you'll have a lot straighter lines. Alright, number 12. Evaluate -2y squared plus 3a for y equals -4 and a equals 3. So evaluate just means plug it in and see what you get. So everywhere I see a y, I'm going to put -4. Everywhere I see an a, I'm going to put a 3. It's a good idea to keep them in parentheses so that the order of operations will be followed. Alright, so if you remember, order of operations says exponents first. So -4 times -4 is 16. and then we multiply or divide before we add or subtract, so we have two of them to do. This is negative 32. And then we're just going to subtract, and that gives us negative 23. Alright, number 13. A plumber charged a customer $228, listing $18 for parts and the remainder for labor. If the cost of the labor is $35 an hour, how many hours did the plumber work? Alright, so we're going to set up an equation. So we know that our equation equals $228. And we know that he charged us $18 for parts. And we know it's $35 for an hour. Now X in this case is our hours of labor, which we don't know. But we know that we're gonna pay $18 period plus $35 for every hour that he works. So you just have an equation to solve. So we're gonna minus 18 from both sides. And then we're going to divide by 35. And I get 6. So that means that he works 6 hours, which is a long time. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to go off the paper. Alright, number 14. Solve 6 squared minus 4 squared over 2 minus negative 8. So this is just an order of operations problem. So remember, when you have a division problem like this, that's the very last thing you're going to do. Simplify, simplify, and then divide. So on the top, we're going to square first, because if you remember our order of operations, we don't have any parentheses. Your parentheses must have something in them to do. Then we have exponents. So 6 squared is 36. 4 squared is 16. And then multiply or divide. We don't have either. This is not a multiplication problem. If there is a sign in front of your parenthesis, that means you're subtracting or adding. Do not think that this is 2 times negative 8. A number right against it would be multiplication. So we can subtract the top, and we can add the bottom, and then our final answer is 2. Number 15 is a good example of what I just talked about. How do you know if you're adding or subtracting or multiplying or dividing? This number touches that parenthesis. There's no sign in between. So this is actually a multiplication problem of 2 negative numbers. So first thing to remember is a negative times a negative is a positive, and then the next thing to remember is just to multiply the tops and multiply the bottoms and then simplify. So 3 times 1 and then 8 times 9, and we can divide both those by 3, and we're left with 1/24. Number 16, a rectangular field is 3 times as long as it is wide. If the perimeter of the field is 408 feet, what are the field's dimensions? So we're going to define our x first. It is usually what is mentioned last. So this is our width. Now using the x, we're going to define the other side. It says it's 3 times as long. So I know if the width is x, this unknown number, then 3 times whatever that unknown number is how long it'll be. And then they're talking about perimeter. So perimeter formula is 2 lengths plus 2 widths. And we're just going to plug in what we got for our L's and W's here. So first of all, we know our P is 408. We know our lengths are called 3x's. And now our widths are called x's. And now we're just going to simplify it. So I got 51. Now because I defined it at the beginning, I know exactly what my x represents. So x is our width, so it is 51 feet wide, and 3 times that would be our length, so 51 times 3. I got 153. And then you can check yourself if you plug these numbers back in. You know, it's 2 lengths and 2 widths, so if we added 2 of those and 2 of those, it should equal 408. Alright, number 17, after a 10% weight loss, a person weighed 180 pounds. What was their weight before the loss? So again, I'm going to define what my x is. And that is their weight before loss. So we don't know what that weight is. So there's his weight before he lost. But then we know he lost 10%, which we always write as a decimal, of whatever that weight was. And then now we know it's 180 pounds. So if they say something like a weight gain, then we would change it to plus. Put your two x's together. This is 1x, and that's a tenth of an x. So we have 90, or 0.90x. Divide both by 0.90, and we get 200. So he was 200 pounds before. And again, you can check yourself, and it should work. 10% of 200 is 20. 200 take away 20 is 180. Alright, number 18, solve each inequality and graph the solution set on a number line. So we get this 8x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 3 times the quantity 2x plus 1, take away x plus 5. So just like an equation, you want to simplify it the best you can before you start solving for each side, or taking things on each side. So this side is as simple as it can be. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that as is. But this side, we got a lot of work to do. The first thing I'm going to do is distribute. Again, we're not touching this thing yet. I can put together these, and I can put together these. So now we have that equation that is as simplified as it can be before we actually start solving. So I'm going to take away 5x from this side, and I'm left with 3x. And then I'm going to subtract. So let's go here. Alright, so according to what we just solved, the x is got to be greater than 5/3. So that means, and it's got to include the 5/3. That's what the line underneath means. So we're going to use a bracket. So it's got to be greater than that. So we know 5/3 is as small as it can be, and it's going to go on forever. And remember, infinities always get parentheses. So I'm going to put 5/3 on my number line. And as long as your x is on the left side, your greater than or equal to sign always points the direction that you're going to graph. So I know it's going to go this direction. So that is our graph. Alright, 19. Use a formula for the area of a circle with diameter 6 inches. Use 3.14 for pi. So you know our formula for area is pi r squared. So r stands for radius, which is half the diameter. So they give you diameter, we need a radius. So we're going to cut that diameter, and that equals a radius of 3. So you cut it in half. So we have 3.14, because that's what they told us to use, times, and then our r squared. So if our r is 3, 3 squared is 9. So we have 3.14 times 9, and we get 28.25. 26. And then, let's see, inches is our unit, and then we remember area is always squared. Alright, number 20. 3 is 60% of what number? I like to use the formula percent over 100 equals part over whole. I'm not a very big fan of the A equals PB. Too hard to remember. But this formula, if you can remember, the percent always goes over 100. What follows the word of is always the whole. So those are the two things I look for to go in those two spots. This one, it never changes. Alright, so I know 60 is the percent. And then on this side, I look at 3. Well, 3 does not follow the word of. So that means he has to go here. The only way he can go down here is if he follows the word of. In this case, what follows the word of is the word what, and in math, what means x. And then we're going to cross multiply. So 3 times 100 and divide by 60. So our answer is 5. So as long as you remember this formula, and that of always indicates the bottom. Alright, 21. If 2 is added to 5 times the number, the result is equal to 5 more than 4 times the number. Find the number. So we have a math puzzle. Read it and write it. The only time that you want to change the order is if they use subtraction in there and they use the word from or than. We're talking added and multiplying, so we know that we can just write it as we see it. So if 2 is added to 5 times the number, so this is our mystery, the result is that's equal to 5 more than 4 times the number. So read it and then write what you are reading. And then we're going to solve it. Get some paper. So I have x's on both sides. Choose a side to get rid of them on. Gone. Minus 2, minus 2. So 1x is 3. So that would mean that C is our answer. So your final exam, I believe it is not multiple choice anymore. There used to be 10 questions that were multiple choice. I believe that they are not anymore. I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I know they've been working on these, which is better anyway. Multiple choice just makes you second guess yourself. Alright, 22. Find 3 consecutive even integers that give a sum of negative 96. What is the largest number? Alright, so first start with, what does x represent? It represents an even integer. And we can just say it's the first even integer too. So you know if you, consecutive means in a row, and then even means 2, 4, 6, 8. So you know if you have like 2, to get to the next one, which would be 4, you're going to, let's say our mystery, we don't know what that number is. Let's say we know it's an even number, but we know all we do to get to the next one is just add 2 to it. So this guy, to get to the next one, would add a 2 to it also, but our unknown number would add another 2 to it. So our second even, and x plus 4 would be our third even. It's all based on what the very first number is. And we know we add 2 to it to get the first one, we add 4 to it to get to the second one. Now it doesn't matter if they say even or odd, because you're always going to add 2. If I was at 1 and I went to 3, I'm still adding 2. I go to 5, I'm still adding 2. So it doesn't matter if they say even or odd. the setup is still the same. But we do know that the first number plus the second number plus the third number, all these unknowns, equals negative 96. So now we're just going to combine and simplify. Minus 6, minus 6. Alright, so this is kind of a tricky question. This is our first number. So if I add 2 to that, that would be our second number. If I add 4 to that, that would be our third number. So right here is what we're looking at so far. The question says, what's the largest number? Well, remember, the deeper you go in the negatives, the smaller the number is. So this is really the largest number. So if you look at our choices, A is our choice. Alright, 23. Simplify. So we have lots of parentheses and brackets. So parentheses are usually what you use to group something together. If you wanted parentheses again, then they use brackets. So you always do them in the order of parentheses and brackets, and then they even will go like this sometimes, and that would be the last parenthesis to do. Alright, so that means we need to simplify all this first. Do not touch this. Order of operations says parentheses first. If you do this first, you're going right to step number 4, which violates 1 through 3. So first thing I'm going to do is simplify the inside. So do that first. So now our parentheses are gone. Now we can get rid of our brackets. Still don't touch this. So I just combined those two. Alright, now we are on parentheses. We did no exponents. Multiply, divide. Still don't do this because that's jumping down here. When a parenthesis is next to a number, that means to multiply or distribute. So we're doing negative 2 times 3x, negative 2 times 1. Now we can go to our fourth step, which means we can put these together. And you can write this in either order. It should be set up so that it'll accept any order. But in our case here, they have multiple choice. So just make sure that you're picking the correct one, which is B. Alright, 24. Good old fractions. Negative 4/7 minus negative 2/5. So if you're confused on what you should be multiplying or dividing or adding or subtracting, check to see if there's a number touching a parenthesis. If there is not, then it is subtraction or addition depending on what's here. So our problem is negative 4/7, take away negative 2/5. Now they just put an extra bracket around there, don't know why. But we're going to solve inside. To be able to add or subtract, we need the same bottoms. So 7 and 5 both go into 35. So that means we times this one by 5. And this one times 7. So now our bottoms are the same. Remember the double negative rule. Whenever you see that, you can change it to a plus. And now we're doing negative 20 plus 14, which is negative 6 over 35. And if I look back at my choices, there's one close, and it makes you second guess yourself, which is why sometimes Multiple choice isn't always the best, but in this case the answer is E because we had a negative 6/35. Alright, number 25 last. I equals PR, solve for R. Alright, so our goal is to get this R by itself. They're multiplying by P, so if we divide by P, that'll cancel that out. And then we're left with I over P. Well, maybe that's L, I guess. So that would be A. Alright, so if you have any questions, please let me know.